Alright guys, I'm back with another video. This time I'm doing the full enchilada on the Royal Enfield. I'm doing the Big Bore, the new cam. I'm putting on the Diablo full exhaust that I bought a long time ago, and adding a power commander. And so hopefully it's going to be a totally different bike when I'm done. I know it is. I'm expecting 50 to 75% power increase, really, so between torque and horsepower. But before I start, I want to do some pre-maintenance, and number one on that list was brakes. The brakes on this bike, they're okay, they'll stop your bike, but I don't think they're strong enough to activate the ABS really at any point. So what I'm doing is changing out the brake shoes first. I bought some new brake shoes from Hitchcock's, front and back. They're like Ferro Organic something or other. I'll get back to them. I'll put links to everything in the description of this. And I am changing out the front tire and the rear tire to Pirelli Sport Daemons, and they're one size bigger in the front and the rear. So I'll put that information, exactly what it is, in the description. And then I went through and I cut weight on the bike. I had installed a center stand on it, and that thing weighed about 4 or 5 pounds. We'll just call it 4. It's very heavy, so I took that off. The front, I had a front bash plate on it in the front also, which I removed. That was about 2 pounds. I was actually kind of surprised. I thought it was just a piece of little sheet metal, but it was pretty substantial. It was one of the BAAK bash plates. And then I took out all of the tools and extra equipment that I had stashed under the seat and in the side panels in case I ever had a flat, because, you know, that's what AAA is for, right? So, alright. So what I have here now is the box from Hitchcock's just arrived. So I figured I would just go ahead and open that for you guys here right now. So I have not checked inside of it yet. And it should be a bunch of stuff that I bought from them. So let's go ahead and get into that. And opening. Oh, also, I'm doing the clutch, so I forgot to mention that. So, yeah, it's gonna be like a full refresh. All right, here's the stuff. First thing we got here, showing up. Okay, this is a tool for doing the valves. So when I change out the cam, there's a bunch of valve work you got to do, and add some shims. So I got this off of Hitchcock. So everything in this box is from Hitchcock. So and they ship it really fast. I ordered this stuff like over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and it was like Wednesday and it showed up. It was crazy, all the way from England. So let's get this stuff out. All right, 2 spare quarts of oil for kind of wrapped up. That's for the oil change I'm gonna have to do, because when you do the clutch, you gotta dump all the oil. I think when you do any of this, you have to dump all the oil. Here's power commander. It should be pre-mapped for the full exhaust, the cam, and the big bore kit. This here. I don't know what this is. Royal Enfield. No, so this is the camshaft. So, alright, so this is the camshaft. Open that. You know, let's take a look. It says it's the performance camshaft, 650 twins. Alright, so it should be good. Alright. Here. Oh, oil filter. I got the non-Royal Enfield one. I mean, it's made for Royal Enfield, but it's I'm assuming it's better. And here is the clutch I got. So yeah. I don't know if it's a Recluse or they just put it in a Recluse box, or if it actually ordered the Recluse, but so here we go. Oops, spell out. So, it's clutch discs. I think I'm doing this, I don't want to jinx myself, but I think the clutch is going to be pretty easy. I watched a bunch of videos before going forward with these purchases to make sure I was comfortable doing it. So here's more oil for the oil change. We've got valve lapping tool, which I don't even know if I'm going to need this, but it was cheap, and I'm like, if I needed it, I didn't have to worry it. So here, okay, here are the brakes. Okay, so here's new front and rear brakes. They should be pretty easy for me to put on right now because the tires are off and I don't have to detach anything. So there are the Ferrado front rears. Alright, okay. Now this here is a blanking kit for air injection on the front of the bike. I'll show you guys that when I'm doing it. It looks like a pretty easy install, but it's gonna be one less hose on the bike when I'm done. So it's it injects air. Well, there's an air injector on the Euro 4 and B4 that dumps air into the exhaust to help burn off extra fumes. And this just kind of gets rid of all that junk. Comes with a plug to keep it from showing an error message on your console too. Okay, these are the cylinder head bolts, I think they're called. Anyhow, according to the manual, they're one-time use. So we're going to remove the ones that are inside there now that are holding the cylinders on, or whatever the... yeah, whatever. When they're holding the engine parts together, I have to replace them with these ones. So, and let's see what's in this box here. I'm thinking it's going to be the engine big block kit. So the camshaft was way smaller than I thought it was going to be. I was expecting some big long thing. But, let's go ahead and take this off here. Alright, get this out of the way. See this? Yeah. Alright. All kinds of S&S swag in here. Alright. Yeah. So, instructions. Good thing they gave me those. Gasket, and it looks like C-clamps maybe. I think for the cylinder heads. The gasket. S&S stickers. Whatever. Yeah, so there's a big door fitting there. I can feel it. I don't want to pack it. I'll show you guys soon enough. I'm trying to put it in, but looks like it's all here, so I don't think I'm missing anything. Yeah, this is going to be exciting. So I figure the value in this video is me showing you the hard stuff to do, or the stuff that's not normal, and just kind of cover me following the instructions, trying to keep it as brief as possible. So that's what I'm going to do from here on out. So let me go ahead and shut this off, and I will start up again. I'm still waiting for some parts or some tools and stuff to show up so I can do this better, some Royal Enfield genuine tools. And then when they get here, I will start cracking it open. What I'm going to do first is put the new rubber on the bike, change the brakes. I'm going to change the geometry in the front a little bit. Maybe I'm going to bring the handlebars up like 5 millimeters. Then I'm going to ride it around for a while and get used to it like that. And then when the other tools show up, I'll begin the whole conversion, and that's where I'll kick off the next video. Alright, thanks guys. Okay guys, I went ahead and I switched out the tires and the brakes as per the first phase of this plan. I went ahead and went with the front tires are 110/90 R18s, Sport Diablos, and the rears are 140/70 R18 Sport Diablos. They are tubeless tires, but since if you have a tubed rim, you can use tubeless tires with a tube. So put those on. I think there is an improvement in the looks. I think it's especially visible in the front. It looks a little meatier in the front. It matches the rear a little better. Went ahead and swapped the brakes also with the Ferrado upgraded pads. We'll say this, do not change the brakes while the tires are off, because it's just a whole another ham sandwich. Just do it as a separate project. So it just gets in the way of putting the tires back on when you have new pads and you're trying to fit it on there. It's just kind of a nightmare. So I ended up doing it both ways. So I ended up first doing it with the calipers still on, and then I was like, oh, screw this, so I had to redo it. And what I'm noticing from the riding right now, the testing this, the front brakes are about 20 to 30% better, so there was an improvement with the brakes. In the rear, it's actually setting off the ABS now, but I can't really tell any difference, really. I mean, it's maybe, if anything, they're not as good. So I don't know. I'm getting some time to work in a little bit. Okay, and moving forward, what the plan was to do the clutch kit and the big bore kit and the new cam all at the same time, because it requires dumping the oil, and I figured I'd just do it all, even though, you know, I'm kind of thinking I don't really want to do it all at once, because I want to test it as much as I can separately, right? So the new plan is to do the clutch and I think the air injection blanks first, and the reason being I'm waiting for a tool from Royal Enfield to reassemble this bike correctly. I still need the cam alignment tool, and it hasn't showed up yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and dump the oil and do the clutch and do the front air injection blanks first, and then we'll just call that the new phase 2. And then I'll go on and do the big bore kit and the new cam separately, and the exhaust separately. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get out the clutch kit and show you guys what's in it and how it's supposed to be set up. Thanks. Alright guys, this is what comes in the box for the clutch upgrade. First you have the new clutch springs, pretty self-explanatory. Then you have the clutch basket protectors. These are little protectors that slide into the teeth of the clutch basket like this to protect it, and then when you slide each one of these in, it'll like grip into one of these. What these do is they protect the clutch basket from I think it's called the clutch basket. They protect it from being marked up and worn away by the rings. So the way you insert these, there's like a little flange. So you can see this on this side. The part with the flat flange, that goes to the inside of the clutch basket. Alright, so that's that. Okay, and now friction rings. You have two different kinds of friction rings. You have the fat ones and the thin ones. And then what that means is these are actually thicker. You have more of the thinner ones. And what's to notice about these mainly is that both sides have the friction material on them, so they're dual-sided. Doesn't matter how you put them in. You don't have to have one side facing any particular direction. Same with these ones here. And then for the steel plates, you have two different kinds also. These are the standard ones that are going in, and this is the one that goes in the top into the pressure plate cover item. So I'm basically going to show you the order these are supposed to go in. Okay, so first of all, in the clutch and the clutch basket, you're going to leave the judder seat and the judder spring in there. So just leave the stock stuff in for that. And the next thing you're going to put in the bottom is a thick friction ring. It's one of these. So you put that in. And then after that, you're going to go ahead and start alternating the thinner friction rings. And by thinner, I mean you can literally see that they are thinner this way. You're going to start alternating the steel plates in these. So steel plate, one of these, steel plate, one of these, steel plate, one of these, steel plate, these, steel plate, steel plate. Friction ring. And steel plate. Alright, so that's what you're going to slide these into the clutch basket on the bike. Okay. And then the next thing you're going to do is put in a thick friction here. And then after that, you're going to be applying items to the actual pressure plate, to the top of the, I guess the clutch cover pressure plate. And so what you're going to do is you take that, turn it over, and facing the outside of the bike, you're going to first put in this last thick friction plate, and then you're going to engage the teeth on the pressure plate, or the clutch cover, whatever you want to call it, and slide that up on top of it. And then from there, you're just going to put the plate on, and the plate's going to be on top of all these. And something to notice is like there may or may not be two sets of slots and grooves for these to be slid into. They're all going to go into the ones that you protected with these pins. So if you have like a smaller set of teeth that normally you would put the pressure plate cover on, and these would go into that, you're not going to use that. You're just going to put everything into the same slots. Okay, so that's basically what's in it in one take. So next I'm going to go out and start taking pieces off the bike, dropping the oil. I've already applied PB blaster to the screws on the case where I'm going to be getting that to clutch. Because the last thing I'm going to do is strip some screws on this thing, because that's going to be like a showstopper. So, and then I will, I'll pick you up after I've got the screws out. Alright guys, I got the tank off, not to the clutch, but I'm going to go ahead and do the air injection delete kit first. I'll show it. This is the kit. It comes with 2 blanks, 2 new gaskets, 4 number 5 screws, and a plug to stop your error messages, and this little plug to plug up a hole that's going to be left to remove the solenoid. I'll show you exactly what's coming out here. So what it is on both sides of the bike there is this plate, and it hooks up to this center hose right in there. It's a big one right at the center, and that hose runs all the way across the top of the bike here into this solenoid, which we're going to be removing, and then we're going to be filling the holes in this, and this is the plug we're going to end up putting the new plug in to stop the error codes. So these are number 5 screws. Also, they come with the they're the same as they come with the kit. You can see there's a bunch of stuff kind of zip tied to this tube I'm going to be pulling out, so I'll have to do something with that when I'm done. But anyhow, I'll go ahead and I'm going to start first to remove these 4 screws in the front. There's 2 on each side, and then I will get back to you. Alright, small update on this. I went ahead and I clipped the tie that was on this hose here, and let's get a better look at that here. It's hanging down the center. That's what I'm ended up having to remove. And so I also ended up taking off the top bolt, is number 12, on the horns, just to get them out of the way because they're a pain. And it's kind of easier, once you get it all freed up like this, it's easier to get the inside bolts from the other side. So you can see, like, I got this thing here connected to, I already removed this one, and now I'm doing the second inside one, and then I'm going to do the 2 outside ones. Okay, I got all 4 bolts off of this. I think it's called like a reed valve. You can see the holes I'm going to be blanking out. Kind of see there's 1 on each side. So next step is to go ahead and remove this hose out of here, and get the solenoid off right here. So I'll get back with you. Okay, so I went ahead and I did the blanks first because I was thinking, what if they don't fit? And I tear the hose out and I gotta put everything back in. So they fit pretty good, no complaints. I would say definitely unhook this hose first and unhook the horn so you have enough room to work around. Once you do that, you'll have enough room to get both screws on both sides. So and it becomes much easier to work. So it was a lot easier. Oops, it was a lot easier than putting. It was a lot easier putting the blanks in than it was taking out the original piece. So there's that. So now I'm going to work on this hose. See what I can do to pull it out. Okay, hose looks pretty simple. This is it from the top. It's already unhooked. It's just going to be a pull to get it out. Like, all right. So now it's hooked up to here. Just buffer this end. Well, actually, I'm going to have to. I could just remove the solenoid. Let me go ahead and unscrew it and do this here. Let me figure out how to pull this plug out before I break it. Alright. Well, I'll figure out how to pull this plug out, and I'll get back to you, and then I'll take out the solenoid here. Okay, I got this out. Basically, all it is, you just push this in right here, this top part, and then you just pull it right out. Alright, so now I'm going to take out these two screws, remove this device, solenoid, and these are number 4s. Alright, remove the 2 screws, and I'm going to pull this out. Try to pull it out. It's really in there. Alright, let me take a closer examination of this and I'll get back to you. Looks like I don't want to mess something up. I'm doing it wrong, so. Okay, it was literally just a hard pull, so I used both hands on it. Got it out. These 2 little washers were inside there. So now, I got this plastic plug that came with the kit, and it just covers that hole that's left. I'll show that in there. Fit. Alright, well, it's going in there one way or the other, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off here for a second while I stick it in there. Alright, got it in. Turns out there was a little rubber grommet on there you're supposed to take off, so I should have read the directions a little better. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put the blanking plug into this. So I can do this with one hand. Alright, so that's the install. It should stop the errors that we would get. Alright, it's time to move on to the clutch. Okay, I went ahead and dumped the oil so I can do the clutch. Next step is to pull out these screws all around here. Well, actually, the next step is to unhook this so that it's not in the way. And then I'm going to take these screws out and pull this case off. Also, I just want to note that before I did this part here, the screws that were in there before I started, I did hit them with PB Blaster for, I don't know, they're probably about an hour before I started working on them. They came out real easy, so I'm hoping for the same on these. Alright, so I'll get back to you after I get this cover off. Okay, to undo this clutch cable here, all I did was unscrew this right number 12 here all the way out and left that one there so it's holding the correct setting. And then I just pulled this back and just pushed it right out of that slot there. So, alright, I'm going to start unscrewing this thing now. Alright, I got these bolts all out on the outside. They came out really easy. I treated them with the PB Blaster. I had trouble loosening this thing up. It's kind of loose now. They tell you to, there's like 3 of these little notches. They tell you to hit them with a mallet, but you really can't reach them from anywhere. So what I ended up doing was taking a back end of a the back end of a plastic mallet here that I have, and just kind of laying it on there, and then hitting this end with a rubber mallet to give it some movement. And I did it at this angle, and so it's kind of loose now. Oil's starting to come out the bottom, so get back to you. Okay, gotta get this thing off. You're definitely gonna want a new gasket because this thing just crumbled when I took it off. These pieces just tore apart. So, and I've been taking a razor blade and scratching off remainders of it. I'm not done yet with that, but yeah, so definitely if you're doing anything where you're going in here, get a new gasket. Fortunately I did order one from Hitchcock's before I started, so I'm good. Alright, and this is the interior here. This is the clutch area I'm going to be working on. What I'm going to be doing is taking off these 3 bolts. Underneath there are the 3 springs, and I'm going to be pulling off the pressure plate and then just changing out all these plates in the order that they're supposed to be changed out in. So, get back with you. Alright guys, I went ahead and unscrewed these, loosened them up quite a bit. These are number 10s, and you can see underneath them is the springs. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these all the way out. And we're going to be reusing these screws and this plate that I'm taking off here. And the springs are getting swapped out. Alright. Oops. Spring. And then here is pull plate and the pressure plate. Alright, so I'm going to get organized here to put the plates in, or take the old plates out, put the new ones in. And also, should be noticed that on the original ones, the steel plates are one-sided, like you have to put them a certain way, but in the new kit, the steel plates are also double-sided. Doesn't matter which way you put them in. So, alright. And also, I've had the new plates sitting in oil for about an hour now, in a bag of oil, so they should be good to go. Alright, I'll get back to you in a minute. Alright, went ahead and pulled all the plates out. Turns out they were all double-sided, so they're pretty much ambidextrous like the other ones. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and put in the protectors here. It's basically these little clips that come with this kit. The flange part on the inside, and just slide it all the way in. There you go. Just like that. And I'm going to do the rest of them, and then I will start putting in the plates in the order that we're supposed to put them in. Alright guys, I went ahead and put in all the safety clips, or protective clips. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting back in the friction plates and the steel plates. So first on the list in the order is a thick friction plate. So I'm going to put that in there. Get it in here. There we go. Push back. Okay, next comes a steel plate. Put that in there. And get it in. There we go. Oh, for a second there, I thought it wasn't going to fit. Alright. Now we got a friction plate. Steel plate. Hopefully this one isn't as difficult. These ones are finicky. Alright. friction plate. This thing's like covered in oil. My exhaust wrap is going to be totally smoking when I ride around after this. It's dripping so much oil on it. Friction plate. No, I'm sorry, a steel plate. Alright. Friction plate. You guys can see where this is going. I will say my clutch didn't look like it had hardly any wear on it, so it was kind of good, I guess. Alright. It's like it never ends. I may trim some of this out when I edit, unless I feel like it's worth it to leave it in. It seems like it's pretty repetitive at this point. Alright. We're approaching the end of here. So now comes another small friction plate, or I guess a thick friction plate. Let's put that in there. And the next two go into this cap here. So the next two go into the end plate, and it's going to be a friction plate. That. And this thing here. Make sure it engages the gears. Bang, hope that was visible. But so, last fat plate and the small geared metal plate. And so I'm going to put this back in here. Get everything lined up. This last little bit. Feels like that was it. Nope, that wasn't it. It's lined up in the wrong place. So what I did was I put this one in these small slots instead of the big ones where it's supposed to go. I'm going to pull this out again too. Alright, let's try this again. Alright. All kinds of trouble here.
that's it. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is replace the new springs on here and then tighten the plate back down. So, take these new springs off. Okay. I'm getting oil all over freaking everything. Freaking mess. Alright. So we got 3 springs. Don't appear to have any side. Needs to go in first. Okay. Okay. Alright, now this here goes on. Top to hold them in. Let's get it started a little bit. Alright, got these started, and you get the idea. Instructions give a specific tightness to use. Let me just reference that for you real quick. So it's 10 nanometers. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten those down, and then start putting this thing back together. Alright, everything's done. I went ahead and tested the new clutch. It's working pretty good. There was a little bit more consternation behind the scenes that I didn't film, because when I got the clutch done, the handle was total mush, and no matter what I did with the cable, I couldn't get it to work right. So I ended up doing all kinds of experiments, reinstalling it, everything. I even put the old clutch back in to see if it, and it was the same way now. And I was like, well, clearly it's not the clutch, right? So I put the new clutch back in and went ahead and I went ham on the clutch cable. I tightened that thing. I had to tighten that thing up a lot to get it to finally start disengaging the clutch, or start engaging the clutch. It just had to be tightened up to a ridiculous kind of amount, to where when I pulled the handle, it would actually start lifting the clutch away from the drive. So that was good. But yeah, so it works good. No problems, and also the front blanking that I didn't seem to cause me any issues. Nothing going on there. Everything is holding up. So yeah, it's going pretty good so far. So we got wheels done, brakes done, clutch, the blanking kit, and I stripped a lot of stuff off. Also, I stripped off the Diablo case sliders I had on right here, because honestly, I don't think they would have done anything if I ever crashed. I think that they would have just tore out those bolts, because they were like held in using like this bolt, and another bolt on both sides, and then like these 3 bolts. I think I just would have ripped them out if I wrecked on it. So, and also I priced some of these cases, and they're not expensive. Like, I don't know, like that clutch cover case is like $120 or something. And the reason I was pricing that was while I was experimenting, trying to fix this thing. So I actually had to take this out too, or undo this completely and back it off a little bit so I could get even more tension. Pulled out, that screw broke off when I was tightening it back up one time. It's still on there good, but turns out this is like actually part of this whole assembly, so I have to pay like $120 for the whole case. So I'm just going to try and get another screw and stick it in there, be done with it. So yeah, everything's working good. So next up is the Big Bore kit and in the cam. So all the pre-work is done. Thanks. Okay guys, it is the next day. I received a shipping notification that the tools I need are being delivered today. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking care of some things on this bike to get it ready. First off, I went ahead and put just a regular M6 metric screw through here, and I put a little nut on the end of it that takes care of the screw that I messed up. To get the other screw out, the half that was left, part of it was just like sticking out here, so I took some like pipe clamp kind of things and just turned real easy and just brought it all the rest of the way out. Alright, so for the first part of taking off this tank, obviously
it's these. I'm just going to cover this really quick and just, as I go through it, just show you things I'm doing. I'm sure most of you have done this already. So, take these 2 screws off first. Alright, I got the 2 number 10 screws out. The next thing I'm going to do is pull the tank up and back to unseat it here. It's locked in the front a little bit. Alright, so I got it up. I'm going to set it up here a little bit so it's a little bit high. And I'm going to prop up the back. Alright, this is so that I can get to the hoses and the clips underneath. So, it's sturdy. Go. Alright. Alright, let's see if I can show you the hoses we'll take out here next. So, first of all, there is this clip right here has to come out, and these 2 hoses are like vacuum hoses. And then I have to undo this clip right here. Can you see this? Kind of where my, let's see, right there. There's like a clip. That's the hardest one to get out. It's really hard. You got to squeeze it in the front and the back, and it's really hard to get your hands back in there. And then there is another tiny little clip, which I'll show you later, that's up in the front. That's pretty easy to get out. All right. So, also something to know about these hoses here. They're not like super important. They're like evap hoses, but when you're going to put them back on, use little bits of like soapy water if you want to slide them back on easier. Just put soapy water on the connection, on the what they plug into in here, and we'll slide right back on. All right. So as you get ready to unhook these hoses and clips in the back, you get more space, and you can see that last green clip right there is the only one that's remaining for me to undo. So I'm going to get that, and I'm going to take the tank off. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and remove the horns, because I know I'm going to need that space here. So it's just these. These are number 12s. So. Alright guys, so the Power Commander 6 comes with plugs to blank out the O2 sensors, to like stop them from having error codes, because it actually overwrites the O2 sensors completely. You can leave them in or take them out, from what I understand, but I'm just going to leave them in this exhaust and just unplug them from the harness and go ahead and put in the plug to stop the error codes. So this is them right here. Basically, the plug itself is on a bracket here, so you gotta get off the bracket first. I'm trying to get this here. Okay, pulls right out, and now you have the plug. And to open the plug, you just push on this little thing here. One-handed. Can't get to it. I can do it one-handed, but I'll get back to you in a second. Alright, so now you have, this is the plug that goes to the O2 sensor. What you have to do now is remove this top part off. This is the clip that holds it to the frame, the whole assembly. I mean, you can leave it just hanging once you plug in the plug if you want, but it's better to take this off. And to take this top part off here, you can reach and you can see there's like a little flange right up against the plastic, right? It's kind of hard to see here. Right down in there. Anyhow, you just take a screwdriver up under that and pry it up, and then you can push this thing back. It comes right off. And then you're going to stick it on one of the blanking air canceling plugs. Alright guys, so this is the plug with the little clip on it. I'm just going to go ahead and plug it right back up in here and use this clip to fasten it back to where it was before. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and slide this on. I actually had this thing upside down. Strangely it fit, but so I turned it right back side up so that it would fit on the track here. You can kind of see it. So, there. Alright, that's one done. Just do the other thing, same thing on the other side now. Alright,
Next I'm going to go ahead and just pull the rest of the exhaust off. I went ahead and soaked these bolts, there's 2 on each side, with PB Blaster for a couple hours. And so I'm going to go ahead and break them free and then just slowly start dismantling the other screws, or the other bolts. So there's those 2, and then there's this one right here behind the case, crank the case, whatever, and then this one up here. I'm probably just going to take this all off as one big section. Then I'm going to go upstairs and weigh it and compare it to how much the Diablo replacement full exhaust I'm going to put on weighs. So, alright, got the stock exhaust pipes off and the aftermarket slip-ons that I had on there and the wrap. I weighed everything. What I had on there total was 28 pounds for exhaust, and the Diablos are going to be 14 pounds. So it's like a 14-pound savings, which is pretty good. That's way more than I was expecting. I was thinking they were going to be really close. But, so, now I'm getting close to cracking open the rocker cover here. Alright guys, I'm going to show you the Diablo exhaust. I'm going to put the exhaust bungs in here. This is where you would normally put the O2 sensors, and you got these off of Hitchcock's. They're just number 14 blanks that come with a little washer. Put it on there. Just screw it right in the hole. And it goes in there. And then I'm just going to hit it with the wrench here. That's it. So that's where the O2 sensors were used to go. Not anymore. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and remove the spark plugs now, and then I'm going to put masking tape over these holes and the exhaust holes in the front. Alright, plugs are out. Use a 17mm socket. Now I'm going to take out the 4 rocker cover 8mm bolts. Okay, I got the rocker cover bolts out, and now what I'm going to do is loosen up these 2 bolts here and pop this. I forget what this is called, but I'm going to pop it up a little bit to give myself some more room to work underneath there and pull the rocker cover out. Alright guys, I went ahead and moved these 2 screws, and I loosened this one up, and I lifted these 2 up and shifted them over a little bit so that they weren't seated correctly on there. Little stands in there, little screw fixtures, just so they would be, so it would stay raised. You can see what I did here. Just kind of shifted them over. And this one here gave me some trouble. It was like immediately, it just didn't feel like it was going to go, so I went ahead and hit it with PB Blaster, let it sit for a while, came back and got it. So last thing I want to do is round off one of these hex screws. So, alright. Moving on to the next step. Alright, now we're going to use a 14mm Allen to remove the cover off of this. So, okay, we got the cover off, and in there is a attachment that's going to turn the crank, and it takes a 17mm socket, and we're going to turn it clockwise until this here has a left and a right. We're going to turn it clockwise until the left is aligned with this line on this side. So then we turn that black disc until it lines up there. And when we do that, then we can remove the left hand rocker carrier by removing these 4 bolts. So I'm going to do that first. So go ahead and do the rotation and unscrew those bolts. Alright, went ahead and cranked it over. And you can see, if you can see it or not, but the line with the L on it, the line with the L is aligned with the left, the crack on the left. And now we can go ahead and take off the bolts on the rocker carrier with the L on it. Alright, remove the 10mm bolts from the top of the left-hand carrier and pull the left-hand carrier off. And now we're going to rotate this again until the flange on here is pointed at the R, and we're going to do the right hand side. Alright guys, next step, I'm going to remove this 10mm bolt right here and get to the cam or the chain, timing chain tensioning system. So, alright guys, that screw is really small, came out really easy. So inside of that little pit that's left there is a Phillips head screw that I have to turn counterclockwise to release all the chain tension. That's what I'm going to do next. Alright, basically what you want to do is use a flat head in here and turn it clockwise. That's how you loosen the chain tension. And I've done that. I think I've gone as far as I can go. I twisted this little yellow thing down here, or green thing, I don't know if you can see it or not. It moves away from the cam chain. That takes tension off of it, so I think it's as far as it'll go right now. So I'm going to go now. I've started removing these two bolts above and below. You can kind of see they're out a little bit. That's the next step, is to remove the entire housing. So, okay, I got this thing out. This is the chain tensioner. You can see it's like definitely a flat head in there, even though it doesn't show a flat head in the instructions. There's a cross, but I'm not really sure what's going on with why I'm releasing the tension in it. It's like an auto tensioner because it's spring loaded. As soon as you turn it clockwise to release the tension, it wants to go back, so it just immediately pops right back to where it was. So I don't know if it's just some kind of check to see if it's stuck or something. I don't know. We'll see if I have any trouble getting it back in the end, but yeah, it's just totally spring loaded. It doesn't really matter if you unwind it, it just pops right back. Unless I missed something, I don't know. But it's out now. Alright, so the next step of this process is to turn the crank down here again until one of those bolts, which you can see is directly on the top right now, is on the top. So it's already on the top. I don't need to do that any further. I'm also taking this opportunity to look at the new cam and compare it to the old one just to make sure it's the same thing. So it looks about the same. It's got the same left, right, got the same lobes on it. Everything looks the same. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking off that top bolt there, and then I'll get back to you. Alright, got the first screw out. I did have to brace the crank because it was kind of trying to turn against me when I was taking that out. I think I needed the cam alignment tool, which has not showed up yet, but this seemed to work fine. So now I'm going to crank this over until the next bolt is on top and take that one out. Alright, so the next step is to remove this C washer after both of these bolts are removed. It's this thing right here. It said to use a magnetic stick in the directions, and it was like all the way rolled back like that, all the way just down in there. But yeah, it just came out really easy with the magnet. Roll it out. There it is. Alright. Alright, so the next step now is to pull out the cam and this wheel here. All is one, so I'm going to have to use both hands to do this, but I'll pull the chain off of it and then pull it out. Alright, I went ahead and I pulled the this forward, put this around the chain so it wouldn't fall in. I'm just going to lift this whole thing out, if possible. Alright, looks good. Off the chain here. Make sure the chain's not going to fall in the crankcase. Alright. Okay, it's out. Alright, before I get any further into the process of taking this off, I'm going to have to undo these intakes on both sides
And I'm also gonna have to unscrew, take out this bolt here. It's bolted the frame apparently, this top part, so I will get started on that. Alright, these are a number 4 hex, this is a number 6 hex, and the nut on the other side of this is a number 14. I had to unplug, this is something to do with the fuel injectors. I had to unplug this to be able to pull this out here. Alright, next step is to remove these 8 bolts that are in the bottom of this tray here. So I'm going to loosen them in a star pattern and then just slowly work them out in a star pattern. I'm guessing they're going to be in there pretty good. Alright, got these bolts all loosened up, pull them all out. These are one-use bolts, just use an angle torque on them, and it deforms them. So when you do this kit, make sure you buy another set of these. I'll put a link to them in the description. After I pull these out, I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to slide something in underneath to catch in the chain, and then I'm going to let the chain drop through this. I'm just going to pull this all the way off. Alright, first issue with this. To get those center cylinder bolts out, or those center bolts out, I had to unloosen this thing here completely, take that third screw out, and I really got to manhandle this around to get those bolts out. Actually, these rear too. So, be ready for that. Alright, so I got all the bolts out, and I think I'm going to have to undo these on either side, just kind of disconnect this center part here completely before I get any leverage to get this thing out. So, this whole area here, it's like it's hooked to it, and I think it's just holding it in place. So. Alright, so I've unloosened these worm clamps on either side of the, I guess it's the throttle body, I'm not really sure. And I'm going to see if I can just slip this thing out. Also, there is an oil temperature pressure sensor screwed into the right there. And instead of doing that, because it looks like it's really hard to get to, I'm just going to, it just runs up here to this plug right here. And I'm just going to plug it, just leave it in there. Alright, so I'm going to try and get this out. Okay, what I noticed is I'm trying to lift this off, is this whole thing started coming up. So what you want to do, before you get in there, just get in here with something and like do some prying, like separate these like a little bit so that this thing actually comes off and it doesn't take everything. Not yet anyway. Alright, another update. I ended up rescrewing these rear ones back on because when I started pulling this out, that was the part that started trying to come out. So I ended up getting it dislodged. I'm trying to lift it up and out right now. I managed to get an enamel covered wire in there holding up the chain underneath it. And it's like, because of this piece here, it's really hard to get it up. So I went ahead on this piece up here that I've already worked on a couple times. I clipped off a clip up here and a clip down here. I put some blocks up under it to lift it. It's still not completely getting it. The issue is the orange follower in there, I think is what it's called, for the cam chain. It just wants to stay in that slot, so I have to be able to lift this up higher. And I think I have to do is take off these brackets on both sides that were holding the top of this in, that were holding this in, so that I can just lift this thing up higher and then get it out of the way. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so these bolts are number 6 hex. Alright, I've got that bad Oscar out. That was a fight. I ended up just taking off the one side here, and I was able to get it out. This is the orange flower thing I was having trouble with. Two things I learned from this. One, unhook the horns. I'm going to unhook my horns here in a second because they're just a pain in the ass. And definitely get this thing raised up from the start. Save yourself a whole bunch of hassle. Yeah. So, just for my own future notes, horns, part with the bracket pointing out, has the tape on it on both sides. So I'm going to hook these things.
Alright, on these horn clips, to undo them, you just press this flat part in right here on the clip and they slide right out. Alright, so now this horn follower comes out, and then there's supposed to be a dowel here and a dowel over here, and I think that they are just stuck in the bottom of the piece I just took off. So I'm going to go pull those out. Alright, here's the two dowels where they would have been after I pulled them out of the other piece. There's right there in the left front and one in the right rear. Alright guys, the next step is to pull the cylinder barrel off, so here it goes. Alright guys, the next issue here, this is just in the way. I can't lift this out of place until this is out of the way because it's hitting it. So I've already undone these worm clips again, and I just kind of tilted it forward. They just came right out. But I have to undo these fuel injector clips on both sides, and I already did this little some kind of sensor hose that goes into this little thing here. So we're undone, and then there's another clip in here, which I think is the idle sensor or something like that. And I don't think I need to do the throttle body stuff on the throttle cables on the other side. I think that they're going to be okay, because I think I could just move this whole thing off to the side. That's all I really need to do, just to pull this out, just like rearrange it. So, alright, and also this thing here, let's figure out where's the best place to disconnect this is, and then I'll probably just pull them off to this side on either side, or this thing on either side. Alright. Alright, so a couple more plugs. This one was up underneath on the left side, and then this hose thing was in the very back that I didn't see immediately. So, alright guys, ended up just doing those last two plugs I said, and I didn't do these top ones at all, and everything's just sliding out to the side just fine. The throttle cable's still attached, and these other two, so I'm just going to leave it like that. So all I need is that space to work. So next I'm going to go ahead and try and pull that out again. Alright guys, I went ahead and pulled this out. The technique I used to pull this out without letting the chain fall down inside was I pulled the coat hanger wire I had out, and I put my thumb through the chain, and I lifted this up, and it comes up pretty far. And there was a point where I could just kind of rest, like tilt it a little bit and rest it. And then I just took the coat hanger and put it through the chain underneath it. So, I'll show you what it looks like here. So, alright, this is what we got here. I put some towels in there so nothing would fall in. Got the chain out. Alright, so I'm going to show you what came in the kit to replace these here in a minute, but the next step here. Okay guys, this is the new cylinder barrel with the cylinders already in it. It's shipped with the cylinders already in it, and actually the piston rings were already attached to the pistons inside there. So I wasn't sure if I needed to do anything, so I actually asked Hitchcock with an email. I'm like, hey man, like, I was expecting loose piston rings and stuff, and just to have to gap them. They said they're already fitted, they're already gapped, so it should be good to go. And I do have to take these out to do the attaching though, just because they're only in there for shipping. And it came with the new head gasket with the new C-clamps for the pistons, and this is the cylinder barrel gasket that goes underneath this. So it's also got this gasket here that you can see around this. That's for the chain tensioner area. So that's what's going to be going on. I still have to do a couple more things in there on the bike to get ready. So, alright, so there were also two dowels. One of them stayed in the crankcase here, and the other one on the other side up here up front. There's another one that goes right here, and it was stuck in the bottom of the old cylinder barrel, so I took it out and put it in the right place. I think what I'm going to do next actually is probably the shims for the new cam that go on the valves, because it looks like a pretty tedious process and I just kind of want to get it done. So also, you can see I was able to just swing this whole thing up on top. I didn't have to remove this here, these things, or the throttle cables. So just once I got unplugged everything else, just see it freely movable. So alright guys, I'm going to do the valve shims now for the cam. I did one to make sure I could do it. It is kind of tedious and whatnot, but this is the tool. Put this right here. Okay, so this is the tool that you use. I'm using the 25mm adapter. I bought the laser valve spring compressor kit from Hitchcock's. So just put this 25mm adapter on here from the kit. There's a bunch of different ones. This one fits these springs the best. And then this is the part that goes into the valve. I'm using the short piece here. Good, yeah. So it comes with a long one too, but the short one's better. You need a lot of clearance. So let me go ahead and get started. Show you what you gotta do. First, we're gonna compress a valve spring. So do this on my lap. Showing up pretty good. Yeah. All right. All right. So first thing you want to do is you want to put this on the valve in the back. So I'm doing this. I'm gonna do this second valve here, and yeah, it's just this round end. There's nothing else that goes on there. So let's go ahead and just seat it in there right now to get started. Okay. Once you got that part done, now what you're doing is you're trying to put the 25mm adapter part directly on top of the cap that's on top of the spring. So I'm doing that. Down. Good fit. Alright, so once you got it on, it's time to start compressing the spring. Alright, so once you get the spring in a little bit, what you're going to do now is remove these two cotters in here. So, you can see this or not, but down inside there, with the spring compressed, there's two little clips you got to pull off. You see one of them just kind of moved a little bit. So what I'm doing to get those out is I'm using using a magnet here. So I'm just going to pull these out. You want to be careful not to magnetize these things with using the magnet too much. Oh, there, a little bit further down. There we go. Alright, here's one. These are the little cotters that are in it. You can see that or not. Good. They're just little clips. There's two of them. They're holding in the top of the valve, so. Alright. That's one out. Put it down here. Alright. There's another one in there. And sometimes it's easier just to tilt this thing to get it out a little bit, because they're pretty loose once you do the spring. I've had to. There you go. Go back, just pull out. Find it. Alright. And here's the second one. You gotta see these things. Alright. Alright, so once you've got both of these out, now you can go ahead and uncompress the spring. So I'm going to do it slowly.
Alright, so this is the top, which is covering the valve spring here. And this is the valve spring. I think there's a certain orientation these have to maintain, so just store it the way it needs to be. Alright. This thing completely here. Alright, so now there's one more piece down here. It's the valves, or the spring seat, and it's in there kind of good. Using a nylon trim tool to pry it up a little bit. I can see it spinning, but I'm gonna get this off. There we go. Okay. It's not like frozen in place, but it is kind of in there. Alright, so you lift it up and try to drop it on the floor. Alright. So you can see this. So this is what the spring sits on. Alright, so you bring it up past the valve seal, take this all the way out. And now what you want to do is take one of the shims that came with the cam kit. One of these, drop it over, push it down over the valve seal, all the way down, make sure it's seated. Put this back on. Alright. Alright, now I got the spring and this retainer here. Alright, now comes the really tedious part. So what we're going to do is reattach the clamp and compress the spring again, and we have to put those two tiny little clips back in. And that's a super pain to do, so I'm going to show you what I think is the best way to do it for here, for these, based on the 30 minutes I spent doing the last one. So first, let's go ahead and reset this. Oops, I've had an accident here. Alright. Okay, so first I'm going to go ahead and reseat this on the back of the valve. There we go, bloop. Alright. Line this up. See that? Yeah, you can see it, I think. Alright. Gonna turn it back down. This is going to be the longest part of the video because it's something I think people have the most questions about how to do it and would want to see it, so alright. So now I'm cranking it down, again recompressing the spring. Alright. Okay, so there we are with that. Okay, now what you want to do, these little clamps, they're tapered, okay? There's a taper on them, and there's like a little bit of a groove. Okay, the fat end of the taper goes to the top on these, and that little groove, there's actually a groove on the valve stem itself, and it like locks into that. And it's, I don't know how well you can see this or not, but it's pretty tedious to do this. So what you want to do, I found the best way to do this is to get some lube and put it on the stem here, not on the thing itself, because the more you touch this, the more the lube will melt, not be adhesive. So. And also, I have one of these picks that's helping me quite a bit. So, do the first one. So now it's lube here. Okay. So, see this? I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm putting a little bit of lube around that groove, just to act as like something to grip into here. I'm using a lot of lube.
Alright, so now I'm taking the first one of these. I'm going to try and put it in place here. So you can see this. And I just put that upside down. Fantastic. Alright. Put it back out. Let's try it. Okay, there we go. So I got it turned around. I'm putting it in the groove. Tapped into it anyway. Okay, get that one in its groove. Alright, now I'm going to do the second one. Oh, shit. Tight its groove. Also, you gotta kind of angle this thing sometimes. It's not like it doesn't seem like it is pressing directly down. It becomes more important as you are releasing the tension on these things because they do not want to stay in place. So, all right, here's the next one. I'm just gonna pick to maneuver it into its home. Okay, there we go. Oh, that went nice. Okay. Alright, now here's the other tricky part. You want to slowly release this thing, keeping those things seated. So, as you do this, it's not going to be happy. Because it's not like a direct, there's like a little bit of angling, so every now and then one of them will not be happy. So you push this thing back down in there. Of course, sometimes you gotta do it over again, so I'll take it back down. Alright. Okay, also they say when you're doing this, the C-clip, the opening parts of the C-clip should be orientated out to in. So it's the two cracks, basically. And I'll show you a trick here in a minute, because it's not a pleasant time when you're trying to do this, to do that, to like worry about that. So don't worry about that too much yet. Just make sure these things stay seated, and you slowly undo pressure. Oh crap. No, back in there. Alright, good. Okay, yeah, they're going really good now. Okay, so the thing, what you want to do is to keep these things seated with the cracks pointing out, you notice when you're uncranking it, this thing here is turning this whole assembly, and it's turning these, it's forcing these things to turn. So once you get them where you want them, before you finish the final untightening, you can just hold this in place, this adapter part, and then undo it, and then they'll stay aligned right. So, if that makes sense, hopefully. Alright, took it out slowly. It's all seated correctly. That's one more. Valve shim in, 6 more to go. Alright. So you can see the little crack is roughly in and out on both of these, which I've done. So, and some of these, like there's like a little bit extra bigger crack on one side than the other, so don't freak. I think it's seated correctly. Alright. Alright guys, that's how you do it. Hopefully that is visible enough, because it's hard to film. Alright, cool. Alright, become like substantially faster at this process. On the last one, I thought it might be worth showing had to do these collars again because they're pretty tedious. Hopefully this film's okay. Alright, so first thing I noticed is we want to use a lot of this. Like, you want a lot of adhesion in here. Holds everything in place when you're moving it. And also, what I've noticed is when I'm seating this device and trying to get the back end on the valve back in there seated correctly, if I just line this thing up on the top of the spring here and start tightening until there's just like a little bit of tension, it's generally seated correctly on the back as long as I'm just like directly on it. So what I've been doing is just seating it, tighten it, and look in the back, make sure it's seated on the back of the valve, and generally it has been every time, so you don't need to do the back first. Alright, so I'm going to seat the first one of these things. Where's my... There it is, okay. So, just going to stick it in here like this. Slide it down. It's in its groove. It's already in there. That one's good. Pick out. Do the second one. Alright. Put down in there. That's right up against. Oh, and also, you gotta like shift this thing a little bit here because it doesn't want to be straight sometimes. Alright, so that one's seated. So that one need to come up a little bit. Alright, so they're both seated. I'll try and crank it off a little bit. Kinda gotta try and keep this thing straight while you're doing it. That was literally the worst music I've ever heard. I don't even know what that was. It was terrible. I felt like I needed to hear it though. Alright. A little bit. It's going pretty good. It's already lined up correctly. The two cracks are like this, so I'm gonna hold this thing in place and do it the rest of the way. That's it. That's the last one. So hopefully between those two videos, or two sections, you saw what you need to do here. Alright guys, it's all 8 Valve Shims. Alright guys, so the next step is to remove the pistons. And what I did is I took this clip, or this pick, and I just pulled this clip out here. This side. I'm just gonna also make sure you got something down here so you don't drop crap into your crank. This here should just slide out now. There we go. And that should release the piston. This piston looks well cooked. Actually, I don't know what it's supposed to look like. I don't know if that looks terrible or what, but it's pretty dirty. I'd say it's on the terrible side. Alright, so that's that. We'll do the other one. See how black that is. Piston rings. Alright. Alright guys, now I'm going to prep these cylinders, get them ready. So the first thing I want to do is put a C-clamp in on the inside here before I do anything else, so that I don't got to worry about that when it comes time to do it. So pulling this pin out, what I'm going to do next is so you didn't have to pull it all the way out, I guess, but I'm going to put this and seat it on the inside in the groove where the C-clamp goes. Okay, and the reason for this is it's going to be a stopper, right? So I put this back in. Yeah. So now it's up against where it should be, right? So I take the C-clamp, this, and I'm going to insert it into here, which is probably going to be a struggle, so I'm not going to show you, but it goes right into there. And then I'll have one of them in, and after I put this all together on the bike, I'll just have to put the other one in. Okay, I went ahead and put in those two C-clamps. It wasn't too hard with my fingers. Now each of these piston rings on here, like around the outside of this, you see they have like a gap on them. You can kind of see that one's pretty big right here. They need to be aligned in a certain, they're supposed to be aligned in a certain way, so the pistons push up like this, so the top ring is the one that's going to be closest to the piston face here. So you see top ring and that angle, this next ring is going to be that way, and then there's three rings that are kind of closer to get together. There's a top oil ring, a bottom oil ring, and a ring expander. And the expander is the one that looks like a little piece of cardboard kind of thing. It's the largest ring. It goes in between these two oil rings. So, and yeah, you just want to make sure, kind of put them in generally the gaps on them in the right place. So. Alright, next thing I did, I went ahead and cleaned off the top of this, and then I installed the barrel gasket. You can kind of tell the difference between the two gaskets because one of them has two holes in the back and the other one doesn't, so you can't mix up the head gasket with it. And it doesn't appear to be any upside or downside on this, it's just the same on both sides. Alright, let's see the first cylinder, just placed it on and pushed that center rod through, and now what you do is put a C-clamp in on this side. And also make sure you're covering this hole so you don't want to drop any C-clamps in there. Alright, both of those new pistons are attached. You might want to invest in a tool to do these here. Ended up using a set of these little pliers. When I got them, I didn't think they would work. I thought they were for something else. I thought I bought them on accident, but you are actually able to grab one end of the ring and kind of put it in there. And there's better tools, I guess, that are like round-headed and you twist the stuff in, and I guess that's what people recommend you buy, but I had to use what I had. So everything's in there, it's settled in there. Checked them out, they're all in the right grooves. So moving on to the next step. Alright guys, I got the cylinder barrel back on, and that was one of the most miserable experiences of my life. That was really hard. I tried a few things. First of all, do not try and do both the pistons at the same time. I bought two piston kits, doesn't work. And I ended up doing, what worked for me for some reason was doing the right one first, just cranking it all the way up, and then doing the left one. And I did it with this piston kit, this power built, there's piston ring kit, power built. There you go, better. It's got an assortment of piston rings in it. I forget which one it is, but one of them does work. The one that fits, and you will be able to complete the task. So, but yeah, it was not a good time. Also, when you get to this point, you want to make sure your chain is still on the sprocket down there. Mine was not. Downside the gearbox. And the way I fixed that was put a little flashlight here and look down inside, and I could see it was off the sprocket down there towards me, and so I just kind of took the chain and picked it up and bent it towards me a little bit, and it kind of made the bottom part go back towards the sprocket. And then I just turned the crank backwards, so I had to, or counterclockwise, what I had to do to get it. Depending on how it's off the sprocket down there, I guess you have to do what you gotta do. But so that wound it back on the chain like a bike chain or something. So wind it back on the sprocket like a bike chain. So that's that. And then I put this back in. So also when you take this out, make sure you look to see how much, like how it feels when it's in and where it is, because you can stick it a couple places, but it doesn't really stick very well except for one. So yeah, pay attention to that. Okay, kind of swung the throttle body back onto the bike here. I didn't plug everything back in yet because this is a good segue to the Power Commander install, because it plugs into a lot of these plugs. So I'm going to do next, go ahead and knock that out real quick. Alright guys, I'm doing the Power Commander cabling right now. Basically I put the unit up here, it's just sitting here free for the moment. I ran the battery cable down here to the negative terminal inside the left side of the bike, just right there. It's real nice. And I ran the rest of the cable or plugs and stuff up underneath all this. That's where they need to go. Also, I've got the plug in here, which I just unclipped this thing, but gotta take that out. It's like a this thing here I had in there before after I put in the slip-ons. So I'm going to disconnect this, and I'm going to connect the fuel injectors. I'll show you in a second. Alright, so this is the left side of the bike. Went ahead and ran all the orange cables down through here. What we're going to do is connect the throttle position sensor here. So we'll go in line to that first, which is this, which I pulled out earlier. So this is the Power Commander plug-in for that. There we go. See it, and then the original cable, which is hanging here now, you go ahead and look on this other side of it. Now this part here is for the fuel injectors up here, so it's basically the same kind of thing going on. We're going to plug this new cable into the fuel injector. I'm going to blank off the old fuel injector, or whatever, go in line to it. So alright. Tidy that up a little bit. I'll come back and tie that up when I'm done the other side. Alright, right side, same situation. Here's the old fuel injector plug-in. So, here's the Power Commander one. Just plug that in there. It goes right here. And I'm going to blank out the old fuel injector here. Fuel injector, or actually it's going in line, it's not really blanking it out. It's hijacking it. Doing that backwards. That's right. Alright. So, that's that. I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the rest of these things I unconnected here. And the throttle body. Alright, that's it with the Power Commander. It is fully installed. It's pre-mapped for the high flow exhaust, DNA air filter, the new cam, and the Big Bore kit. So I also got the plug out. Also, I know about the cylinders. They came like pre-oiled. So if you saw me like messing with them, thinking, oh, why didn't I oil them? They were like oily, like super oily when I got them, and they still are. And before I started working with them, I oiled them again. When I was done, I wiped them down a little bit, got whatever dust I could find off there, and I oiled them again. So they are very oily. Alright guys, I was getting ready to continue with the assembly here, and I realized that the head gasket they sent me is copper, and it's just all copper, nothing, no additional raised parts with any sort of extra gasket on it at all, so it requires some copper gasket sealant. So I'm going to spray 2 coats of this on the front and the back, and it says to let it evaporate off once you've done that. And then I'm going to put that on the bike and continue reassembly. But also make sure when you're doing any of these gaskets that you completely clean both sides, because you really, the second to last thing you don't want to happen on this thing is have to come back and replace a gasket because you put it in wrong. So it's not fun taking this thing apart, putting it back together, I'll tell you that. Also, something else I want to show you, because of the first thing that you don't want to do is strip a screw in this thing. This is what I've been putting on every external screw. So it's this blaster penetrating catalyst. I thought it was called PB blaster, but I don't see a PB on the can anywhere. So, yeah, every single screw, anytime you take a screw off of this thing, do it, because you do not want to strip anything off. And that's external stuff, not the internal. Alright, and also I am currently waiting for an order, some eBay orders I made from India for tools I need to time the cam. I'll show you when we get there, because you have to time the compression, the top dead center left cylinder on the compression stroke. You have to find that, and that is, once you have that set on the bike, inside the cylinders, we have that the piston up, top dead center, the left cylinder on the compression stroke. You then put in the cam, and you align it with the that little LR signs on the side of the cam. That's when you align with the left. That's what the left means. It means, hey, this is top dead center. So you basically, it's for the cam timing, and if you don't do it that way, your bike's not going to run probably at all, at least not right. So waiting for those. I had previously ordered the stuff from another store in England, and it was like Bike Parts, Royal Enfield. I guess it was actually Royal Enfield, but it's been almost 2 weeks, and the order is still processing, so I just canceled it. I'm like, ordered it. I found the specific parts I needed from India on eBay, and I just ordered them, so hopefully they'll be here pretty soon. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to go ahead and get as far as I can. Can't do the cam yet completely, so I'll just do what I can. Alright guys, something I found while cleaning off the cylinder heads here. There was like a large amount of crap just right here, just caked on. And the same with right here at the top of both the cylinders. Or I guess that's the rear of both cylinders. I used gum out on it, and just in my general cleaning, and it was breaking up a little bit, but I ended up having to actually rub it off with this to get it out. So when you're cleaning, just kind of look for that. Alright guys, got the cover back on. The way I ended up doing it, it's not like fully screwed it in yet, but it's seated. As I kind of put it in as a tilt, and it's kind of sat like that for a minute, not touching the gasket or anything. And then I made a small little hook. It was here, and I ran it down through the top of it so I could get a hold of this chain here, and I had it already hooked into another one right down through this crack, and so I just swapped those, and then I was able to pull that chain up through here and just kind of back it into these. They were like wide open, so it just went in there really easy. Took a couple minutes to get it seated directly on the dowels, which I didn't show myself putting back in, but I took those dowels and put them back. One up here, one in the right rear. So now what I gotta do is tighten this up. I gotta put this bracket back on that I put on here. Now that it's seated, screw it, put that big bolt up through here, plug in that oil temperature sensor plug again, that's still hanging off the end of it. And let's see what else I missed here. But yeah, still making progress. Okay, I got this bracket back in, and I put this bolt back in through all the way through here too. It's just hand tied right now, so I'm gonna go 2 nuts on it until I make sure this is all seated correctly. Not hooked up. I may actually wait on that last little bits of twists on this until I'm completely done with all this. So, but I'm going to tighten these ones down. Okay, I've tightened these top 2 down. This one here, it's finger tight. I'm not gonna do that one yet. And I did these worm clamps on each of these hoses on either side, here and here. They're like number 4s. I'm gonna go ahead and put the covers back on here and on the other side. Alright, got these covers back on both sides. Also did the plug right here for the oil temperature sensor that I had left hanging. And now I'm going to go ahead and put these washers back in here for the cylinder bolts. 8 of them. Just like that. Alright, so I put the washers in, and then I put these cylinder head bolts in and just finger tightened them a little bit to make sure that the holes were all right and it was getting a little bit of a thread. For these center 2 right here, they were really hard to get in again. I had to really manhandle this harness around to drop them down through. And then I'm going to start the torquing procedure on these. Alright guys, I finger tightened in all the bolts and I ratcheted them down until they met resistance. None of them are torqued. So the first round of torque is supposed to be 15 Newton meters of torque, and the pattern that the manual says to do it is this one here, then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one over here, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. So I'm going to follow the manual and do it that way. Alright guys, I went ahead and did the first round. The next round of torque is going to be 35 Newton meters in the same pattern. Alright guys, I did 35 Newton meters, and so the final torque is going to be for 270 degrees using an angle torque meter. What that is, it's a device that fits onto your like a breaker bar that measures how many degrees you turn the breaker bar instead of how much torque you're applying. So this is what it is. It's got a 1/2 inch a socket on it. I have an adapter down to a 3/8 12 millimeter socket for here, and it's got a dial on it with degrees. And what you want to do, basically put it on your thing you want to torque down. Alright, and then you take this dial and you want to set it to 0. Zero's on the other side. Great. Turn this around. It's easier to see. Alright. Alright, so there we go. So got it seated. Let's see, 2010. So 0. I got this little black bar thing here at 0. And then you tighten it down on that end. Alright. So now you got 0 indexed, and that's where you're going to start. Also, you want to put that there to brace everything. It's all this little clamp thing. It just braces it from getting out of hand. And so now, when I turn this and tighten it, this little indicator here is going to climb up and show me how many degrees I've gone. I feel like I'm going to have to do this in 2 steps because of where this is located. It's kind of hard to get a full 270 in there with a breaker bar. So, but I'm going to do that, same pattern, all 8 bolts. Alright, so I'm on the last one. It's been pretty nerve-wracking because I keep feeling like I'm going to tear these things off, but I've never used one of these before. But I have noticed this, when you're setting this pin, this pin, pull up on it before you tighten it, because sometimes I noticed it binding with this, and it's strong enough, the bind is strong enough to make this move a little bit. It's supposed to be a free-floating dial, and it's only like held in place by this little clip here. So you want to make sure that that is not touching it. Alright guys, I'm kind of at an impasse here until I get these tools I need, so I'm going to take a couple days off and I'll get back. But you won't notice it, because you'll just see the next video, or the next chunk of this video. So, I will be back in a second to you. Hey guys, something else, back on the top dead center subject. Before I put the cylinder head back on, I aligned this manually at top dead center, the left cylinder. So I saw a lot of videos of people like how to find top dead center, and they're all like sticking pencils and stuff down the spark plug hole and just turning the crank and until the pencil stopped going up higher or reach its max. And I figured, well, I could do it easier, a lot easier, just looking at the cylinder while it's exposed and cranking it until it goes up and then to its highest point, and then marking that down here as a with a reference point, so I knew if I was close still. It's just in case I end up having to do it manually. So I know it is at top dead center now, and I'm pretty sure that these pistons just crank the same every way. They don't have a different up-down motion for the compression or the exhaust cycle. So because compresses once, compression, again exhaust. I think that's all controlled by the valves, which are controlled by the cam. And so basically, if I put the cam in right now at L and tighten everything down, it would probably be good. But I'm also waiting for some tools that are going to lock everything in place while I'm doing the tightening. So I'm still have to wait for the tools. I just wanted to let you know that, just in case, I gave myself a fail safe here, so I didn't have to stick a pencil down there. Just in case that's the only way to do it, I wanted to manually do it, or I wanted to visually make sure it was at top dead center, left cylinder. Alright guys, still waiting for the timing parts, but I went ahead and put the exhaust on. And it's a Diablo Exhaust. It's alright. It's really hard to get these screws on in here, like the inside ones. In here, it's because it's just, there's no room to work, and so I had to finger tight as much as I could, and I could get like a socket on kind of at an angle and finger tight it some more and crank it down a little bit. And then eventually I came in from the other side on both of them, just coming in this way on these inside ones, and I was able to hit it with a wrench to finish it off. But yeah, it was pretty tedious. So that's all in. And this part down here, I always wondered like what people were doing down here, because this bracket like goes right up against the bike. It's not on the outside of this rubber. So what I did was I took the rubber and these things and all the fittings off of the old pipes, and I put them on top of the Diablo clip where it goes in. And I couldn't use these because it was like, it's such a tight fit right here. I couldn't get them in. I felt like I was going to cross thread this screw or this bolt. So I just left these off and left the rubber, and I can see that it probably could use another washer or something, but I mean, it's in there, so it looks better than just having a big screw hanging out. So yeah, it's all in. No issues really. When I'm fairly easy once I got everything mocked up loosely, and then I tightened down the head first, and I went back and did everything. So all right, still waiting on parts. So one more note about the pipes. The mapping I have on the Power Commander 6 is, for free flow pipes. Can have a cat, and I really liked my old pipes. I had them wrapped and everything. I thought they looked pretty cool. So I actually was thinking about drilling them out. I was trying to find where the cat is inside them and drilling it. So I stuck a coat hanger down it and to feel where it was. And like on the old pipes, it was like all the way down here somewhere. So there was no way I'd be able to hit that with a drill. It was like way in there. I'm like, well, new pipes it is. So let's see if I like these as much. Let's see it all put together first. But anyway, these are way more functional. Alright guys, I got these special tools I was waiting for from Royal Enfield to do this job. The first one is this gears locking tool. You can just slip it between a couple gear wheels. I may or may not need this. I think the top dead center tool might be enough, but we'll see. This is part number ST27533-2. And next part, this is the cam alignment tool. You use it to lock the cam in place while you torque stuff down. This is part ST30260/A. It's called the cam TDC alignment plate. And this one here is this is the top dead center locking tool for the crank. and this is part ST30300/A. And this one, on the right side, I've already dropped the oil and pulled the crank cover off again. There's a little hole you stick this into, and I looked inside the hole. Like when your left cylinder's at top dead center, there'll be a peg, a little hole that this peg here can fit into. When I look in that hole right now, I can see that peg right there. So my visual alignment, which I'm not going to rely on now, was actually really close. I can almost get this into the right slot. So I'll show you that in a second. And also, I've been watching like a bunch of instructionals on how to properly time the cam and all that stuff. And I came to realize, basically, the point is you want the valves to be open in a certain way when the left cylinder is at top dead center. So we got the locking of the top dead center down, that's fine. And a bunch of the videos, they were like putting all kinds of measuring devices on the valves, trying to figure out when they were open properly and all kinds of stuff, and it made it overly confusing. And that's just not in the Royal Enfield manual. And what I realized was, so this cam here determines where the valves are. And this cam, unlike the ones in all the videos I was watching, is marked, which I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's got that left-right stuff on it, just like the Royal Enfield one. So this is the performance cam. So when I got top dead center locked, and I have this on L correctly aligned on the bike there, these lobes control where the valves are, and that they should be set correctly at that point. This thing should be set up so that all I have to do is like a normal alignment. Otherwise, there's no reason for these things to be marked L and R, right? So I think it's going to be kind of simpler than most people have to do, because I don't think everyone's cam is marked like this. So, but it should be timed correctly as long as I line up the L and R correctly and lock everything down correctly, and just pay attention to what I'm doing. So I think timing the cam is not going to be a big issue, especially now that I have the right tools. So I'm going to show you where this tool goes here. It's kind of cool. Alright, so this is the right side of the bike, and I'm going to show you where the top dead center lock tool goes. It goes right into this hole right here, and you can kind of see that there's something back in there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a peg hole in there, and it's just barely off center. And what this tool here does, is it goes right in there, locks into that peg, and that should be holding the top dead center left in place. So that's the whole point of this tool, and that's probably the most important tool of all the ones I'm going to be using here, to make sure I got top dead center to get things aligned right. So I'm gonna jiggle the crank on the other side a little bit, because this thing is like off like 0.5 millimeter right now. So I'll stick this in, and then I'll get back to you when I got it locked in place. Alright, so what I did is I just reached over the bike with my left arm, and I jiggled the crank a little bit with my right, and this thing slid in. It slides in until it's flush. Like there's a little lip on it right here, and once that's flush, it's locked in place. And you should be locked at top dead center on the left cylinder. Okay guys, now the next step is to seat the cam in place, so what you do is you take your original sprocket off the old cam, and this is the side with the LR markings. You kind of get it over the lobes, you just loosely seat it here, and then we're going to put it back in here under the chain. So I'll get back to you when I get there. Alright guys, that went in pretty easy. So now you can see you got the LR on this side, just like on the stock. And what you're going to do is, like, this wheel is still not screwed. The sprocket's still not screwed to the new camshaft. And so you have some leeway to make sure to twist this to exactly L before you put screws in here and lock everything in place. So okay, I'm doing like one final last quick comparison of these two cams, because the L on the new one is upside down, which I thought was kind of odd. I just wanted to make sure everything was cool. And yeah, it's upside down, but it's in the right place. it looks like it's an LR in the right alignment on both of them. So next step is to go ahead and lock the cam in place with the TDC cam alignment place, so that, or plate, so that it's locked into this L. Alright, so now I'm on the right side of the bike, and you can see the other end of the cam from the LR side has a little slot in it. You just take the cam alignment tool for the left side, you use this side of the cam alignment tool, just slide it right into that slot. Now it's locked in place, and if I go to the other side, the L will be indexed. So now we have cam locked down an L, and we have the top dead center locked in the left cylinder. Alright, so the next step is to now put a screw through this hole. And you don't want to torque it all the way down yet. We're doing, there's 2 of these holes. These are the original screws that came off the original cam. And we're going to tighten that down the crank with everything lined up perfectly. Alright, so I got the first bolt in. It's in there pretty snug. Nothing too crazy. And now I'm going to crank it around and do the right side. Alright, remove the top dead center lock and the cam plate. And also, just for the record, the manual states to never do this, never crank the crank counterclockwise. So, there's some discrepancies there, but it's like always clockwise is what it says. So I've got this hooked in right here. I'm just going to go ahead and crank this around until the R is indexed on this side now. Okay, I now have R indexed. You can see it's lined up almost exactly perfect here. And the question now becomes like, how do you know that's the right R, right? So what you do is you come around with the crank locking tool. You can see that the TDC crank locking tool. You can see the right side one has a slight angle side, so you put the other side in and it fits into the slot that is now angled to match the R, and that locks the crank in. And R. And now I'm going to go ahead and put in this one, this next top bolt here. Alright, so I got the right hand side screw in. It's finger tight right now, it's a little bit snug. And I'm going to tighten it to 35 Newton meters with everything locked in place. And also I looked in the hole in the back on the top dead center, because that's obviously removed now because it's not on the left cylinder. It's just like there's no peg hole in there anymore, it's just like wide open space. So you'll know that, just so you know what's in there, it's just like an empty gap now. Alright, I had a little issue doing that. What happened was, when I cranked it around to the R and locked it in place and started torquing it, the thing started turning, so I didn't have the left screw on good enough or something. So what I did was roll it back around to L again, put the crank lock tool back in so that top dead center was locked, and then I put the cam plate back in on the other side for the left, and I torqued the left down because they were both kind of tight at this point. So now I have torqued down the left, and this one here is pretty snug, and now I'm going to, this is the right one, now I'm going to torque down the right one, and I'm going to verify both are still correct when I'm done. Alright, got everything in, torqued it all down to 35 Newton meters, both those bolts, double checked everything, alignment looks good. So now it's time to put this C washer back in here. I took out the original one, but first I'm going to hit this with some assembly lube, just kind of paint it all over, crank it around a little bit, make sure I get all over everything. I'm using this, I'll put a link in this, but this is assembly lube with moly in it, and that's what the instructions call for. So, there you go. Alright, I lubed the crap out of this thing with moly. This stuff's thick, it's like spider webs. You pull it off, so I put the C-clamp in here, I kind of slid it into its little slot, and I'm just going to push it all the way down there. So, C-clips in, so that should be the cam pretty much in place now. Next step is to install the chain tensioner back through here again. Into that little hole. Alright, so this is the chain tensioner. It's apparently
got two sides. So the manual says to insert with the longer side of the foot towards the right hand barrel, and I can only assume it means this flange here. And also in the documents, it shows a flat surface here on the left, or in the pictures, and on the right side, you don't see this, so it must be the right side, because the image shows it going in like that, so I can only assume it goes like this. Also, the kit, the Big Bore kit came with a new gasket for this, and this thing has a rubber O-ring on the back of it, which is still stuck on there from when I took it off anyway, so I'll go ahead and attach this. And also, I still can't figure out what they mean, why we're turning the screw in here, because it just immediately pops right back out. Maybe it's just to help me put it in or something, but I'm just going to go ahead and put the two screws in loosely and then just crank them down a little bit and turn that if I have to while I'm doing it, because I'm still going to get it. Alright, new wrinkle on the chain tensioner. I found out why you got to tighten that thing up, because you literally cannot get it in there unless you tighten it up. So what I did is I hooked up a little small ratchet and with a screwdriver attachment, and it's basically plugged into a 1/4-inch socket. And I've got it, I wound it all the way around and was using it to hold tension here while I put this thing in. So I'm just go ahead and screw it in and see if it unwinds correctly. Alright, so I got the chain tensioner installed, and the last step was to turn it counterclockwise on the inside with a flathead screwdriver to apply tension to this little orange guy right here, which I don't know if you can see him or not, but it's pushing on the cam chain. So I just backed it all the way off, and it said don't over tighten it. It said turn until it stops. So I backed it all the way off. First I went completely clockwise so that the tensioner was moving away from the chain, or the plastic follower in there was moving away from the chain, and then I just kind of turned it loosely. It wanted to go forward, so I just kind of let it go forward as far as it wanted to. Turn the screw counterclockwise as I was pushing it back against the chain. And when it stopped, when I didn't feel any more free play, that's when I stopped. When it felt like it wanted to stay where it was. And at that point, I feel like the spring and the tensioner, the spring in the inside that enclosure there was putting the tension on the cam, and that's probably the goal here. I also torqued those two bolts down to 12 Newton meters. So I think that's good. Now I just got to put the last little screw at the end here to cover it up. Okay, guys, we're getting ready to put the tappets back on and rollers. Before we do that, also they're labeled left and right. I kind of just sat mine how I put them out of the bike, so it's like this is the left side of the bike. This should be forward. Underneath here, these are the rollers for the cams, roller cams, and roller tappets. Well, anyhow, you want to molly the crap out of these things too before you put them on, because you won't be able to get to them. So go ahead and set this on, and also you want to go ahead and loosen these all up. We're going to do a complete valve job as part of this, so you want to loosen this stuff all up, because we did all kinds of crazy stuff to this bike, and you don't want to tighten these down with these too far low. We put shims in and everything, so I don't know what's really going to happen. So loosen all this stuff up before you start attaching this. Okay, I've cranked the cam back up here to L, and I've reinserted the crank lock here and the receptacle. Everything's still lined up really good. I'm not really surprised. So back up to this part, and we've got the L side of the tappets here, and I went ahead and backed these off, all four of these, the lock nuts and the tappets. I mollied the inside of this, and also here where the cam's going to be touching it. So now I'm going to place it on, and you can see it's got some dowels in there to sit in with the L forward, and it screws down to 12 Newton meters. So let's set that here. Make sure nothing's good, everything's loose. Alright, go ahead and take care of that. Okay guys, after I got the left side on and I torqued it down, I realized my L was no longer on this crack. I had the top dead center pin in the other end, so something settled when I was doing that. So took it back off. I took chain tension off in the back here with that thing, just holding it, little detention tool there, and I loosened these here bolts on both sides of the cam. Went ahead and locked in the top dead center again, top dead center tool on the other side, and then I put in that cam alignment plate, got everything back on L, and I'm going to go ahead and torque these things back down again and continue on. Hopefully this isn't a thing I keep chasing, but I'm pretty sure it just settled when I was messing with it, so let's see. I'm going to reset it and go ahead and continue. Alright, got everything locked down and got the cam, the correct alignment, everything looks good, so now it's time to go ahead and do the tappets. So I'm going to crank, I'm starting all the way over on the left. This is the intake, it's going to be 0.08 millimeters, and on this side it's going to be 0.18, that's the exhaust. And basically I think most of you know how to do this already, but this is basically you're just trying to set the distance right here on this thing here, and using these feeler gauges, and you just use a screwdriver on this top item here, and this is the lock screw. So it's best to have like a wrench and a screwdriver, and you just kind of hold this where you want it, and then get this down to the right thickness gauge here, and then just lock it in place. So I'll go ahead and take care of that. Alright, I'll show you how to do one of these. This is one of the intake valves on the right side. You see it's completely loosened up. This is the 0.08. I have them both like flinged out so I can use them. Basically, I just what I do is I slide it in there and just kind of set this thing somewhere so it doesn't fall out. And the Royal Enfield manual or training videos all say to leave this in here while you're tightening, to leave the measuring feeler in there. So then just take this, and it's not really all the way out, so let me just go ahead and get this down. I also have this cranked all the way over on right, so. Alright, so that's pretty good. Go ahead and take the screw on top here, and I'm not tightening it down, just getting it to where I can feel it. Alright, it feels pretty good. A little bit more. Okay, so this screw on top is what's bringing the lid down, or the tappet down. It's closing it up. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to hold that in place while you tighten the lock screw. Alright, this in there's pretty good. It's got resistance, so yeah, this is like the fastest valve job I've done on this thing so far, or a tappet job anyway. So I'm just going to do this one next, and I'm going to do these two in the front with 0.18 millimeters. Alright guys, well that's the valve job done. And best way to double check your work is just to go by and see if you can stick the next biggest feeler in. If you can, then you probably left it a little bit too big. So go back and redo it. So make sure you can get the correct one in and the next biggest one not in. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and put the cover back on the top of the engine. I went ahead and sealed the seal on it, and put it back on, screw it back on the screw. This takes the 4 screws on top. It's 12 Newton meters of torque to go into those. Alright, I got everything finger tight here, and also I wanted to say I put a little bit of the gasket maker down in this crack, which apparently is good practice. Also, this is a torque wrench I'm using. Not that I'm plugging torque wrenches, but I have 5 torque wrenches if you count the angle one that I just got, and this is my favorite one. Basically because the display is easy to read, and it gives me an audible alarm when I'm getting close to the torque, and then it gives a pretty good beep, another alarm when you're on the right torque, and I just like it better than the click stuff. So I couldn't find this particular one, but I found a better one this company makes, and so I'll put a link in the description, which I'm probably going to end up buying that one too, because it actually goes higher. This one only goes to 30, the new one goes higher, so, but yeah, this is a pretty decent tool. Plus you can see exactly what you're doing while you're doing it. You can like see the torque you're at, so it's nice. But I'm going to go ahead and torque these down to 12 Newton meters. Alright guys, put the horns back on, so continue moving on. Okay guys, getting ready to replace the clutch cover here. And something I want to show you, like when you're putting this back on, you want to make sure these little gear things here, you can see them on there, there's little ridges on one side of this, they need to be pointed that way, like directly back way, that way. If you don't do it, you won't be able to see the cover. It'll like try and these gears like intermesh with something and it has to be in this position. So I'm gonna go ahead and try and put this on. Hopefully I'll get it in one shot while you guys are watching. When I did it, I left the cable, I just loosened the cable up a whole lot and left it in place. I did unhook it from the lever on the outside here. So let me get it kind of close. Alright. So what I'm going to do here is move this to about here, I think is where I need it for mine. And it's kind of seated. Alright, so you can kind of see this thing moving now. It's in the gear there. I think that's where I need it. Yeah, that's about right. Okay. So now I'm just going to screw these in and torque them down to the specified tech, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but I will let you know in a second here. Alright, I went ahead and finger tightened all these. I'm going to torque them down to 12 Newton meters all the way across. And just like everything else on here, you tighten stuff down in a crisscross pattern. I did have trouble actually finger tightening one of these in, so I sprayed some penetrating fluid in the hole and swapped it out with a Q-tip. And it was all good to go after that, so just know you don't ever want to force anything on this bike. Alright. Got this torqued down. I'm going to go ahead and reattach this. What I did when I loosened this up was I just unloosened this one side so I can push this all the way forward. Put that in there. And then tighten this back up. Although I may need to come back and readjust this. I think it's going to be mushy again like it was before. Let's see. Oh crap. Just did that backwards. Back down here, that's why. There, that's better. Well, I'm going to have to readjust it, but because it's on this one with this new clutch, I have to really take the slack out of this thing. And it probably was already like that, but I felt like when I reinstalled all this the first time, everything was mushy and it wasn't like quite right. So, but if I just take this up to the point of resistance, it looks like that's about where I had it. So, just test the clutch out real quick. Yeah, that feels right. So, yeah, like you gotta take this thing all the way up to where, with the new performance clutch, to where you just, the thing won't go anywhere, and you think that's where it's gonna stop, like, oh, I can't go any further, but it will go further. It's just, that's where you gotta use the lever action and stuff. So, let me tighten this down. So I'm gonna tighten these up, and it should be good, and I'll give it some tests. Alright guys, I'm gonna go ahead and pull out these wooden blocks and seat this back down. I forget what this thing is, but it's no longer in the way. Alright, let's just tighten back down. So don't go nuts tightening these. They're just holding this thing down, and you don't want to. Anytime you're dealing with those like sunken in hex things, you really got to take caution. So if you don't have to like go nuts on something, don't. And now I can reattach this little hose here. It goes into this little lip. I don't know if you can see it or not. There's a little copper-looking brass lip in there. Anyhow, I think this just goes to a sensor. But I'm gonna now that this is reseated, I can put this pipe over each, or this hose over each. So I'm going to do is smear a little bit of soapy water on that nipple down there and just slide this over it. Alright guys, it's tank reassembly time, so what I'm going to do is put some soapy water on this here. And this is two hoses, and then I'm going to set the tank on and plug in this first, and I'll just kind of seat it back as I go, put it in that next, and plug these and this in. So, alright, got the tank back on, the hoses hooked back up. I'm going to tighten these two down. Also, again, don't make a problem for yourself by tightening these down too hard, because they're not low bearing, they don't do anything but keep the tank from moving around. So, even if they came out, it wouldn't matter, the tank would stay on. Alright guys, so it's time to refill this thing with oil, and I did a bunch of research on braking in engines before I got to this point. And everything I saw was, whatever you do, don't use synthetic engine oil to brake in piston rings, because it's too slick. It's really good once your engine's broken in, but when you're breaking it in, you want to use, at a minimum, conventional mineral oil. So, this is brake-in oil. It's 15W50, right? So, Royal Enfield wants synthetic. They recommend synthetic and 10W50. So this is the only oil I could find that was conventional, really, that was kind of close. So I was looking around, I've kind of figured, well, I might as well get brake-in oil then, like I just do it right. So I got 15W50 Maxima mineral engine oil for the brake-in, and I'm going to run this, and I haven't decided if I'm going to go more than 100 miles with this before I switch to synthetic, because apparently the actual brake-in period is pretty much 90% done after 100 miles, so even less than that. So, but I'm definitely going to use this first, help it get the rings seated, and go from there. So the 15W on this, that's the winter rating. It's different. It's a different kind of rating system than the summer, right? So that's what it is. At 0 degrees, it's going to be a 15 weight oil. At full temperature, it's going to be a 50. And so, with the Royal Enfield recommending, 10W50, at operating temperatures, it's going to be the same weight. And I'm not at 0 degrees, so these things get thicker with additives and stuff as they get warmer. So it's the magic of chemical engineering. Also, this is 4T. There's a couple of different versions of this. This is the 4T, and what that means is 4-stroke. There's also a 2T, which is 2-stroke. So you want to use the 4T, and this should be 50. The 20W50 might be good too. I don't know. And this one also was the only one I could find that specifically said it was good for motorcycles. There were a bunch of brake-in oils that looked like the right weight and all kinds of stuff, but I couldn't find any documentation that said, hey, put this in a motorcycle. So I just, I don't want to do anything wrong. I want to do everything. I want to give this engine the best possible chance of not grenading on me, So, and the oil filter I'm using is this Molly OC1600 that I got from Hitchcock's. So I'm going to put this in, I'm going to fill this up with oil, put it on, and go ahead and fill the oil back up. So that's my thoughts on breaking it in. Also, the break-in period. For the cam and the engine, they're different. They're almost opposed to each other at first. So the engine says, hey, start the engine up, run it for 30 seconds, and then turn it off and check for leaks. And then let it sit for a while. Once you're satisfied you're good, you run it for 3 to 4 minutes, get it up to 150 degrees, and then turn it off and let it cool down. And I guess you're like setting gaskets and checking for leaks, just, doing the grenade checks, really, and seating things. So, and then the cam is like, hey, get this up to 2,500 RPM as soon as possible and keep it there for 20 minutes. So I'm kind of like stuck, what do I do? But however, so the Royal Enfield has roller cams, and as opposed to the flat tappet stuff. So apparently the roller cams are easier to break in. All you have to do is make sure they're getting lube splashed on them. So I think I'm going to be good for 3 to 4 minutes of running it, and plus I'm sure there's lube going to be in there anyway. So I think I'll be able to do the engines checks. And also, I just, I feel like I need to do the grenade checks first, right? So that's what I'm going to do, and then right after the first 3 or 4 minutes of the engine break-in, I can mesh the two break-in periods pretty well. I can
get this thing up to 2,500 RPM, or above 2,500 RPM for 25 minutes, and also do the same RPM stuff that's recommended for the engine at that point. So, alright, hope that made sense. I'm going to go ahead and put this oil in. Alright guys, time to put in some spark plugs. I'm using these Iridium CR8EIX. I got them from Hitchcock's also, with the other stuff. Some notes about these is they have these caps on the end. You have to take those off. I don't know if you ever tried to shove one of these in there and it didn't fit and you thought you had the wrong thing. I'm speaking for a friend, of course, but so you just take a pair of pliers and you just kind of grip them a little bit. They just screw off. So, and you're supposed to put a thin coat of anti-seize on the threads, and they go in at 10 to 15 Newton meters. Alright guys, spark plugs are in. I went ahead and finger tightened both sides in, and you always want to thread them with your fingers first. Don't want to cross thread them. So got them seated, set them both to 10 Newton meters, because I'd rather have a loose one than a stuck one. So I'll go ahead and plug these back on. Put the cables back on, I'll be done. Alright, putting the plug back in here. The seal for that is supposed to be 22 Newton meters, and also the oil plug is 35 Newton meters according to the manual. Alright guys, it's time for the moment of truth. I've burned the sacred incense, chanted the prayers. It's up to the machine spirits now, and God. So hopefully this is the grenade check. Let's see if it turns over what it does. There's literally no reason why it shouldn't work. I followed the instructions, torqued everything down, aligned everything correctly, so here we're gonna go. I am doing it on the stand still, which I guess you're not really supposed to run a bike on the stand, but I think this is a special situation because I don't want to be sitting on it if something terrible happens. So it's in neutral. I'm gonna go ahead and start this up. Just 30 seconds. Successful grenade check. That was 30 seconds of running. It sounds much more mean. I'll tell you that with this new exhaust on there, it sounds pretty good. I was expecting a lot of smoke to come out of it, honestly, so maybe that's a good thing too, right? I'm really ecstatic right now. This thing worked. So, all right, so I'm gonna let it sit. Look for any sort of oozing oil coming out of anywhere. Pretty good. I did notice a couple things smoking just because I have like oil on the outside of the bike in a couple places and various fluids, but yeah, this thing's looking pretty good. So that's a grenade check. Now I'm gotta do 3 to 4 minutes, get it up to speed, let it sit and cool off again, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, success so far. Alright guys, I went ahead and realized at the end after that I needed to actually, the first one was supposed to be a minute, not 30 seconds. So I went ahead and had another 30 seconds. Did a good inspection, didn't see any leaks. Everything looked good. Cleaned up some of the oil stuff I had going on underneath the vehicle already. And I went ahead and did the next 3 to 4 minute run. And this is supposed to, apparently the gaskets are prone to failure in this first part, so they want you to bring up to operating temperature and then just let it sit and completely cool off. So that's what I'm doing. And then later today I'll take it for its first ride and try and keep it over 2,500. So it's pretty loud, and I was kind of thinking maybe I could just do that in my garage at 2,500 RPM, but there's no way. There's no way my neighbor's going to put up with that, so I don't have to break it in on the street. So I'll be back with the next specific instructions when I'm ready to start. Okay, so after I took it for the first test ride. I pulled over a few minutes into it. Like, I'd been filming. I don't know if I'm going to include that part in this or not, but everything was going pretty good. I was doing the break-in, and I pulled over, put it on its kickstand, noticed there was oil coming out, like dripping all over the kickstand, like just coming down the side area. What had happened was the chain tensioner looks like it's got an oil leak somewhere, and I think it's coming directly out of the center of it, honestly, because this screw was off. It was just like laying right in here. I'm like, oh crap. So, and I'm looking around checking all the seals, and I didn't see like the head gasket or the cylinder barrel gasket, all that stuff. It looked good. I mean, it's kind of oily down here because it was leaking it was leaking down from the chain tensioner down to that gasket, but it wasn't the issue. So, I got it back, checked the oil, verified it was still good. It lost hardly anything. Rode it back here. And when I noticed, like when I did some more tests, that there was like, I could just literally see oil like kind of bubbling around inside here. So I'm pretty sure when I was like engine braking or something, it was just like blowing oil out all in this area, and it caught in the crevices. And when I leaned it over on the kickstand, it just started draining down the side here. So I can't get this back in. It won't grab in. So I think I must have messed it up when I was working with it. So I'm gonna get a new chain tensioner and just put it in and be done with it, because if I don't do that, I'm just gonna have oil leaking everywhere. Other than that, everything seemed to be going pretty good. So I can't wait to really rip on this thing and see what it can do, but I'm not there yet. Alright, but I'm pretty sure the cam is successfully broken in now. We've had its 20 minutes of 2500 or whatever, so. Alright guys, thanks. Alright guys, same day. I got to looking at this little screw, and it's pretty short, this one that popped out. It got me thinking, like, what if I had a slightly longer one of these, and maybe it just needs a little bit more to catch a bite. And so I went and got from a screw assortment I have, it's just, these are all like number 6s. I got a little washer for it, and screwed this onto the screw so that it became more of a wider end, basically, screw. And I know it's a machine screw, so. And I screwed it in just to see if it would hold, and it holds. It screws in fine, and it holds, and it goes right up against the little O-ring that's on the chain tensioner. So I'm thinking, I actually went ahead and bought whole another chain tensioner system, but it's going to take forever to get here. So I'm going to do an experiment. The screw fits. I can make a seal with this. I'm going to go ahead and put gasket maker on this and screw it in, you know, as another screw. And we'll see how it holds up. Take a quick test run, see if oil starts squirting out again. If not, then I'll have something I can use until I get the new part in. Because basically I don't think there's a whole lot of oil pressure there. I just think well, there's clearly some. But I think if I have something just to hold up against that O-ring, it'll be good. This is what it looks like when I put it together to make a new bolt. Alright, I'm gonna go give it a shot. Alright guys, there it is in place right here. It's got a nice seal. I'm gonna let it set up for a little bit. And also, the amount of oil that came out during this procedure, or when I was riding around, it was very little. Like, I can't even detect a difference in the oil level in the sight window. So I think it's not a whole lot came out anyway. So I'm gonna go give this a ride here in a few minutes after it sets, and then I'll let you know how it worked out. Alright dude, took it for a test ride, and no more oil blasting all over the place, so I fixed it. Really all I did was replace one bolt with another one that was slightly longer. When it really get down to it, no big deal. But, so, probably just leave that in there until, unless it starts leaking, or until I get the other chain tensioner. I'm not even sure I'll put the other chain tensioner on, because it's holding pretty good. If I ever work on this insides again, I'll just swap out the pieces. Alright, so I'm going to continue the break-in process. Alright guys, thanks for watching the video. I'm going to go ahead and call this project done at this point. There's still a break-in period to go through, but it's kind of not going to be interesting to watch that. I did make a video of when I first took it out, during the initial ride, shakedown, the first break-in part, and it was pretty boring because I couldn't take the bike over 3,500 RPM. So I really don't know what this bike can do yet. So I will make another video later and give a full review of how all the mods came together and how it feels. What was done so far? We stripped off 24 pounds of weight, new tires, new brakes. I adjusted the clip-on handlebars a little bit, so there's now 30 millimeters here on both sides. This post showing up. I did a full exhaust, did the air injection delete in the front, performance clutch, big bore kit, stage 2 cam, and a power commander. And also, what's important, why did I do this? Like, what are my reasons for doing this? Basically, it was inevitable. I like projects, and this one's been cooking in the back of my head for a while. And part of it is part of having the cafe racer spirit. You want to lean the needle more towards build than bought. So I've replaced many kilograms of the engine now, so I feel like I can say it's more built than bought based on everything I've done. Also, performance. I want the performance to match the looks, right? So you want to have a good-looking bike that performs well. And I just spent several $1,000s doing this, and think of it as like that's a lot of money for maybe not a great performance improvement yet. I don't know, but it's like going on vacation. Some people pay several $1,000s to go on a vacation, and so I just spent several $1,000s to work on a bike. It's just what you enjoy doing, right? Costs, total money spent. So I spent about $470 on new tools alone. Okay, and most of that was the Royal Enfield specialty tools, and they were very useful. So definitely the top dead center left cylinder lock tool. So you definitely need that, and I needed all of them really. So I spent $560 on consumables, and that include brakes and tires and oil. So just anything that was getting used up. Main parts for the big bore, clutch, exhaust, power commander, cam, and air injection delete. I spent about $3,500 and $2,551. So total investment was about $4,500 or $4,581. So whether you think that was worth it or not, I guess it remains to be seen. So, but it was a good project. The amount of time it took me, I went from September 7th to September 25th. I had one entire week off during that process, and a lot of it was spent, waiting for parts or me at work, not being able to work on a bike, work on doing things until, a weekend. So, key takeaways. So one person can do this, but it's better to have two, especially when you're dealing with the cylinder barrel. That was just a bear to do by yourself, to hold that thing up and to fit the cylinders in there. Like, it was crazy. So just when it happened, I was just so happy when they both slid in correctly. I was like, it was over. So the GT and the Interceptor GT platform was great for do-it-yourself. I mean, everything's right there. It's not super complicated. It's a good learning experience. You need a good set of tools, for sure. I had a bunch of tools before I started, and I still spent a bunch of money on more tools. Difficulty, I would say, is advanced. Obviously, I can't give it a 0 to 10 scale because it's hard to say. Because if you have the right tools to start out with, you've done this before, it probably would be easy for you to do this bike. But for me, I'd love to tell you I'm an expert and all my answers were correct, but I've never done this before, so I'm going from zero. Not totally zero, but I did a lot of studying until I felt comfortable with the entire process and before I made a move. But yeah, I'm not. This is my first time on this, so you need to do a lot of research, have the right tools. You have to have some physical strength if you're doing it by yourself to move the pieces around and pull them apart. You got some ability, and also you have the fear of knowing your bike's not
possibly not going to work when you're done. You might, you don't know what you don't know, and you might do something that's just going to grenade the whole bike. So the YOLO factor, you just got to go for it if you're going to do it and hope for the best, I guess. If I had to do it again, I think I learned what I need to learn. It was a good learning process. I would take it to a shop, like you guys in England have like Revelry and Hitchcock's and those guys. If I was going to do it based on also versus the cost of tools, like you'd have to compare the cost. It's probably going to be pretty close to just letting them do it. And I would probably, if I lived near a shop as good as those shops for Royal Enfield that does this kind of thing, I would just take it there and let them do it. Because you're going to, get a consistent outcome. And I would not take it to like Joe Schmo, Joe Schmo mechanic shop around where I live. Because I'm not going to, I doubt they do this very much here in the U.S. And also, it's they're not going to care as much, really. So I think I put a lot of thought into it, and I probably have as much experience doing this particular stuff as half their new mechanics, right? So in sum, I'm glad I did it. I wouldn't do it again. I would take it to a shop. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll send another video out as soon as I break it in and let you know how it's performing. Until then, I really appreciate you guys watching the video. I hope it was useful. I hope someone else gets to do this kit, and it's a good reference for them. So thanks for watching. Appreciate the views and the likes. Thanks, guys.